The ongoing immigration debate, lawmakers get back to work. The House getting ready to vote on another immigration bill later this week, which would provide funding for a border wall, as well as a pathway towards citizenship for dreamers. It's uncertain if this bill will have the votes to pass. Here now, Florida Congressman Ron Desantis, a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, House Freedom Caucus. Congressman, where are you on this vote? Are you going to vote yay?
Oh, I don't think this has the votes at all. The compromise bill, the true compromise, was the conservative bill that got 193 votes last week that actually would solve the problem. It would solve the illegality. Yes, it did the wall, but it also had E-Verify so that we have a legal workforce so people are checked to make sure they're here legally. It defunded sanctuary cities. It ended chain migration. It ended the visa lottery for the diversity. And then it did things like deal with this asylum issue that is definitely being abused, and it's causing some of the problems we have at the southern border. So that could have passed had there been a concerted effort to do it. The bill that the leadership is pushing is a major amnesty, and that's not what Republicans ran on. I mean, you talk about DACA is 700,000 people. This is going to be 2 million, and the folks that get amnestied will be able to bring in parents who came illegally through chain migration. So that's just not going to fly in the Republican conference. So I don't think it's going to. It didn't have the votes last week, and I don't think there's been anything magically changed to give it the votes now.
But President Trump, in his 4-part plan that he said that he would get behind, covering 1.8 million DACA recipients, or the Dreamers, he would get behind that. The Wall Street Journal editorial page, which I read religiously, has pointed out, you guys are not doing the president any favors by fixing immigration when you keep calling taking care of the Dreamers amnesty. So what do you say to that?
But there's 700,000 DACA recipients. There's not 1.8 million or 2 million.
But we need to explain why that number is attached to President Trump's idea, and it's because of the people who didn't step forward and essentially raise their hand as someone who was brought to the United States as a child.
Here's the thing with Obama's policy. There's now an incentive to bring minors. That if you bring a minor, that's a ticket to get into the country illegally. Or an unaccompanied minor, then you're going to go. And that is just bad policy. So I think if the compromise bill were to pass, I think it hurts Republicans in the midterms, because I think our voter base will say, that's not what you campaigned on. Why weren't you doing the things we wanted? And then I think next summer you would see another border surge, and that's going to be very difficult to deal with. I support Trump's wall, but that ain't going to be built by next year. It's going to take years and years. Every liberal group in the country is going to sue to stop it. It's going to be caught up in a lot of litigation. So unless you have things that are going to prevent that, I think you're inviting some problems. So my prediction is that you're not going to get the votes. If you really want to get a bill across the table, you do the bill that got 193 votes. It does do the DACA piece, but it also does things that will work. And so we're not continuing having these cycles of waves of illegal entry.
The president did tweet on immigration yesterday. He was busy over the weekend. We cannot allow all of these people to invade our country. When somebody comes in, we must immediately, with no judges or court cases, bring them back from where they came. Our system is a mockery to good immigration policy and law and order. Most children come without parents. This is essentially getting rid of due process for people who come into the U.S. illegally.
Well, that's not true. Right now, if you're coming from Mexico and you just hop the border illegally, you are identified, stopped, and immediately turned back. You don't get a trial. You don't get any of that. It's these people who are not from Mexico, coming from Central America. Our law just doesn't view it the same. So you're coming in across the border illegally. Now, here's the thing, Dagan. If you have a legitimate asylum claim, then you're supposed to go through a normal port of entry. These are folks who are not going through the normal port of entry. They're sneaking across the border. And if they weren't stopped, they would just continue. They would not even claim asylum. So the question is, if you know that that process is being abused, why not just say, and first of all, it's hazardous to bring minors across the desert like that. I mean, that is not responsible adulthood. So you want to take folks and then return them immediately. If you have a trial about this, then I mean, and that's in the interior of the country too. You know, you don't have some major due process rights. I mean, there's certain times where you would have it, but I mean, this stuff needs to be dealt with expeditiously.
Well, I know that because you were the Democrats' argument, the reason that the law is written, particularly when it comes to unaccompanied minors, is if you have a child who's from Central America, you can't take that child and then hand them over to Mexico if they're not originally from Mexico. That was one of the reasons that law, that that law was written the way that it was. It was back during, it was a Dianne Feinstein amendment.
Well, and this was a different, since Obama did his executive amnesties, you've incentivized people to bring either minors in tow. Sometimes it's their dependents. Sometimes it's just an adult with a minor, and then unaccompanied minors. The question is, why would you want to incentivize that type of policy? To me, that's the last thing you would want to incentivize. And so we've got to address it, but it's going to need to be done very clearly.
And I will point out that in terms of this fiscal year, starting in October, the number of unaccompanied minors coming into this country is actually up from the previous period a year ago, while families coming in as a group is down from the previous period. So that's the area of growth, are these unaccompanied minors coming into this country.